straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily.
You just try to blame me for some reason?
No, I mean, I was just saying, like, I was thinking about it more this past week because it's been, I know, you can't hide from it anymore.
The government's final witness testifies against accused Sarah Lawrence sex cult leader Lawrence Ray. Plus, was it patient care or murder?
To my knowledge, fentanyl has never been used in lethal injection.
The defense calls its one and only witness in the trial of ex-ICU doctor William Husel. And
hello, and good morning.
It's Petito family versus Laundrie family. Why Brian Laundrie's parents say a civil lawsuit should be dismissed. But first, the Olympian attempted murder trial.
Did you want that bastard finished?
Yes.
Cross-examination heats up as shooting victim Lauren Kanarek takes the stand for a second day. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. We begin with news out of New Jersey, where for the second day in a row, shooting victim Lauren Kanarek takes a stand as a prosecution's star witness. All this as Kanarek's former dressage trainer and one-time Olympian Michael Barisone stands trial for her attempted murder. Barisone is also charged with the attempted murder of Kanarek's then-boyfriend, Robert Goodwin. The charges date back to 2019, when Barisone shot Lauren Kanarek in the chest twice and also fired shots at Goodwin, following a string of back-and-forth arguments about Kanarek's living arrangement. At the time of the shooting, Kanarek and Goodwin were living on Barisone's property, as Barisone trained Kanarek in dressage horseback riding. In the days leading up to the shooting, a string of 911 calls were made by both parties. Barisone saying he tried to evict Kanarek, and Kanarek saying she was being harassed. Defense attorneys say Barisone feared for his life at the time of the shooting and suffered from mental health issues, even sleeping in his stable leading up to the shooting. On cross-examination, Kanarek told jurors how she reacted in the moments following the shooting.
Somewhere in between, after I told 911 I had been shot, Rob was, you could hear him struggling with Michael. At that time, I grabbed my phone. I was covered in blood. I crawled somewhere, whether it was an inch away or half of a foot away, to get my phone, thinking the only way that I could help the situation is by helping to make sure no one else gets shot or killed that day, which is why I had my phone and was hitting Michael on the head with it, or on the ear with it.
How long were you beating Michael Barisone with your phone?
Maybe a matter of seconds.
You're sure of that?
Pretty sure, yes. I didn't have, yes, I'm definitely sure of that.
Do you recall previously saying that you used your 7 minutes to help Rob by keeping the 6'4" MB subdued by breaking my phone in his cheek and in his ear? Do you recall saying that you were beating him for 7 minutes?
That's not, wait a second, Mr. Belenkas. That's not what it said.
Okay.
Don't characterize things.
Okay.
Ask a question. If you're reading from something, read the specific words. Do not characterize it.
Okay. Did you say these exact words? I used my 7 minutes to help Rob keep the 6'4" MB subdued by breaking my iPhone on his cheek and in his ear.
Probably said that, yeah.
7 minutes you claim to be beating Michael Barisone.
Joining us today is legal analyst Dina Dahl and Terry Austin as we break down the testimony of Michael Barisone's trial. Dina, the prosecution was smart to warn jurors that they may not like Kanarek's behavior, especially based on her social media posts bashing Barisone. But could a lack of sympathy for the victims lead to an acquittal?
In this case, I think it may be more persuasive than in other cases because the victim is also a witness and kind of a key witness because there's not a lot of, evidence around exactly what happened other than what each of them have said, the defendant and the victim. So her credibility becomes very important. And those social media posts, how she comes across on the stand, ultimately will help the jurors believe who was the harasser here, who did kind of initiate this. They both say it was the other person, and this is how the jurors going to sort that out to see who they believe for themselves.
Yeah, credibility and likability are probably like cousins, very different, but still somewhat related. Terry, Barisone's girlfriend, Mary Haskins, is explaining to Terry she and Barisone felt. Do you think that's enough for self-defense? And do you think she's testifying because he can't or won't?
Well, I do think she's testifying because he probably will not testify, certainly because he has some mental illness and he is very weak and he seems very shaken. But I thought Mary was a great witness for the defense, even though the prosecution called her for their case. She basically confirmed everything that the defense was claiming in their opening statement. She frankly confirmed that Lauren was hassling and bullying on Facebook. She basically said she was trying to ruin his reputation and that really made him very fearful. She said she saw him in a fetal position. So she confirmed all of the things that the defense is trying to claim, including that mental illness.
Yeah, the prosecution probably trying to take the sting out of her testimony by calling her rather than having the defense call her instead. We'll keep eyes on this case as it continues. Thank you both. An update now on a story we first brought you on Law&Crime Daily. The body of missing 18-year-old Naomi Irion is recovered in Nevada. Irion went missing from a Walmart parking lot more than 2 weeks ago while waiting for a shuttle to work. Officials say a tip came in on Tuesday that led investigators to the 18-year-old's body. It was found nearly 2 hours away from where she was last seen alive. Last week, 41-year-old Troy Driver was arrested and charged in connection to Irion's kidnapping and disappearance. A judge ruled on Wednesday Driver's bail is set for $750,000. If bail is posted, he cannot be released until a GPS monitor is installed. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, both sides rest in the case of ex-ICU doctor William Husel. But first, the Petito family versus the Laundrie family. How Brian Laundrie's parents hope to get a civil lawsuit dismissed. Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily, an update in the saga of the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case, as Laundrie's parents are now looking to get a lawsuit against them filed by Petito's parents dismissed. The Petito case captured the nation's attention when the 22-year-old went missing while she and Laundrie, her boyfriend, traveled on a cross-country trip together. Months later, he showed up in Florida without her. Then, roughly 2 weeks later, he too disappeared. That led to a nationwide search and the findings of Petito's remains in Wyoming. It was ruled she died by strangulation. A month later, Laundrie's remains were found in a Florida reserve. His death was ruled a suicide. The Petito's lawsuit argues Laundrie's parents knew their son had killed Petito and were working to help him flee the country. The Laundrie family attorney is calling the lawsuit baseless and frivolous and says his parents, quote, exercised their constitutional rights to refrain from speaking and relied on counsel to speak for them. Back to break down the latest Petito Laundrie saga is legal analyst Dina Dahl and Terry Austin. Terry, do you think there's a chance that Gabby Petito's parents may actually prevail in the civil suit against Brian Laundrie's parents?
You know what, Brian? Unfortunately, I don't think they will prevail. I think this is one of the saddest cases that we've ever seen. When you read that complaint, and I've read it several times, it tells the story, and it's a very unfortunate story. Clearly, Brian's parents were not saying anything. They hired a lawyer immediately, and Gabby's parents are claiming that the parents of Brian knew more than they were saying, but they don't have any obligation to say what they knew. They talked through their attorney, and the complaint actually doesn't even spell out causes of action like intentional emotional distress. And I think that basically it is just a story that they're telling, and it's a true story, but it's a sad story, but I don't think they're going to prevail.
Yeah. Now, Dina, maybe there's a crazy thought here, but I get the Laundries wanting the lawsuit dismissed. But if it's baseless and they can prove that, doesn't that mean they should also be suing the Petitos for defamation?
So it's interesting. In order for them to make a defamation claim, the Petitos would have to have made a statement outside of the complaint itself, because anything that they say in the complaint is covered under litigation privilege. We want people to kind of make their case in front of the court. So you're not subject to defamation based on what you say in the complaint, only outside of it. The other thing, too, is that the burden of proof is very different. If the suit prevails, it's up to the Petito family to prove what they knew. If they decide to sue for defamation, the burden would shift and they would have to prove that they didn't know, which is harder to do, and it would make more sense for them just to continue to dismiss it or win in this case.
Interesting. Sounds like sound legal advice, and that's probably why they're doing it here. Thank you both. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, federal prosecutors call on yet another alleged victim of the accused Sarah Lawrence sex cult leader, Lawrence Ray, to testify. Plus, both sides rest in Ohio as a former doctor faces charges of patient murder. Hear from the defense's only witness in the trial of William Husel next. Welcome back. After weeks of testimony from prosecution witnesses, the defense begins and quickly ends its case in the trial of ex-ICU doctor William Husel. Husel's accused of murdering multiple patients by giving them a lethal dose of the drug fentanyl. While prosecutors say Husel murdered all 14 victims, defense attorneys say Husel was providing end-of-life comfort for those in need. In all, the prosecution called 53 witnesses over nearly 6 weeks. The defense, headed by famed attorney Jose Baez, began its case on Wednesday, calling its first and only witness, a critical care specialist, to the stand.
First of all, I guess, the question is dying painful at all? And I think the answer is that yes, dying is presumably very painful. To watch it, having watched it many times, it looks that it can be quite painful for people.
Why?
Because, they, based upon simple things like simply what they say, people may say, I'm in pain, if they can, or they may, make sounds, of moaning, or in the way that their body moves, and just bringing to bear one's own empathy, the empathy of another person suffering, that we can recognize it, we're tooled for it, we can see it. We can see it even very slightly. It's our common humanity. And so I see it all the time. And, I register it. I'm affected by it. As my job as a physician, I don't want to leave it sitting. I want to seek to relieve the pain and suffering of the patients that I care for.
The defense read its case Thursday morning. Closing arguments are expected to be presented on Monday. Legal analyst Dina Dahl and co-host Terry Austin are back as we discuss Husel's defense. Terry, one and only one witness. Did the defense need this witness? And if so, how did he help?
I absolutely think this was a very smart move on the part of the defense to call one witness, a critical care specialist, who can explain to the jury why it is important to give this comfort care, that patients go through pain when they actually are going through the death process. And if he had called multiple witnesses, I think that would have been a problem. We know already that 53 witnesses over 6 weeks is a very long time. You just need this one and only witness, particularly since I think the defense did a great job on cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses. So good move on the part of the defense.
And I think I'll add to that. It also makes a lot of sense because when we think about so many of our first responders and caregivers and now in times and seeing so many people die, I think people can kind of connect with that and say, yeah, that's harmful to them as well. Dina, so Husel doesn't testify. Are you shocked? And do you think this was a right decision by the ex-doctor?
I mean, I agree with Terry. I think this was really smart. There's a lot of risks in putting the defense on the stand. They could bring in prior bad acts. He could have maybe performed poorly on cross-examination. There would have been looking into what his particular threshold of pain is like and maybe how that differs from others. And also the expert is much better at speaking to the two issues that's so important, which is causation. The jury is going to put much more weight into what an unbiased expert thinks about that than Husel. So I think that they did a good job. He couldn't have added that much more than the expert did, and there were risks involved.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how this all connects when closing arguments are presented to the jury. And of course, we'll be giving you gavel-to-gavel coverage here at the Law and Crime Network. When we come back, another victim takes a stand in the federal trial for accused Sarah Lawrence sex cult leader Lawrence Ray. Our Adam Klasel is at the federal courthouse with the latest developments. Welcome back. The government is soon expected to rest its case in the federal trial of accused Sarah Lawrence sex cult leader Lawrence Ray. But before calling another alleged victim, Yulitza Rosario, the sibling of two other witnesses who have already testified for the prosecution. Ray faces several federal charges, including tax evasion, racketeering, sex trafficking, and money laundering, among others. He's accused of running a sex cult over the last decade, which he allegedly started out of his daughter's on-campus housing at Sarah Lawrence College in 2010. Jurors have heard from several of Ray's alleged victims, including Claudia Drury, who told the jury about becoming a prostitute at Ray's suggestion, to which she testified was a way for her to pay him back for the crimes he says she committed against him. Jurors also heard from alleged victim Santos Rosario, who was a student at Sarah Lawrence and a boyfriend of Talia Ray, the defendant's daughter. His two sisters were students at Columbia University. They were brought into the alleged sex cult by their brother. A video of one of his sisters, Yulitza, was shown to the jury Wednesday, showing Ray bombarding her with questions about her mental state.
So why are you throwing this mood around?
I'm not throwing.
Do you want to hurt yourself? Do you?
Yeah, I see.
I asked you a direct question, Yali. Please answer the question.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you just want something to be wrong with you? You can answer it yes or no.
Yeah.
And when do you think about that? Like in relation to what? Or whom?
They wanted something to be wrong with me.
Yali, keep talking.
Because she f***ed me up, so.
She what?
She f***ed me up, when I was younger.
And you've been thinking about that?
I haven't been, I was never a normal person.
And how long have you been thinking about that?
I've been thinking about that more since the past week.
Why?
Because, you're pointing things out about what I do and, how I've been.
That's a cop-out. That was a cheap shot, Yali.
Law and Crime's Adam Klasfeld has spent the duration of this trial inside the courtroom. He has details on the defense's plans once they begin making their case before the jury.
I was reviewing some defense filings. They're previewing what they're going to say. And because of all of these videos, because of all these evidence, it doesn't seem like they're going to meaningfully question the allegations against him. The defense that they're floating at this time is an advice of counsel defense. Larry Ray plans to argue, if he's permitted to do it, that his lawyer said that this would be permissible to collect money as compensation, as restitution for these string of offenses, which prosecutors say was totally imagined, that he wasn't poisoned, they say, by Claudia Drury, and was not entitled to make millions off of her alleged sex trafficking.
Man, I want to find out who that lawyer is. Their bar license is probably in trouble. Dina, let's focus on the defense for a minute because it's shaping up in a way, let's say interesting way. The defense is suggesting this was all aggressive encounter therapy. What's that and does it make sense here?
So the defense is saying that this therapy that was popular in the 1960s and 70s, where the therapist would put their patients into uncomfortable situations in order to get past their trauma. But people don't get prosecuted for putting people into uncomfortable situations. So even if there is that theory, most likely it's been debunked since then. But still, a therapist who did the things he did could still be charged with a crime. That's not a defense. So it seems, I think, fairly flimsy. It might resonate, though, with one or two jurors, and I think that's what the defense is hoping.
Yeah. Now, Terry, therapists get paid. So is the defense suggesting that he is providing therapy, thus is entitled to compensation, holding water to you?
No, it's not holding any water as far as I'm concerned. This wasn't therapy. I think, like Dina said, there's therapy where you are helping people, but you are helping them remember these difficult times and you're bringing them through those times so that they can heal. That's not what he was doing here. He was hurting these individuals, both physically, emotionally, mentally. There was no therapy here. And to say that he is entitled to compensation, I think, is a bit ironic, to say the least. He should have been charged criminally. He has been charged criminally. And don't forget, Brian, he has been in jail before for committing other crimes. He's been charged in the past. So this is something that he has done as a matter of habit. And so I definitely think that they have a lot of evidence against him.
Pretty interesting to see how this plays out. Of course, we still have to wait on the defense's case. Well, thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.